In this video, I will do a short review of the new Marie Antoinette TV series. It will be similar to the review video I made of Becoming Elizabeth last year. I will share what I think of the series, what I liked and didn't like. The series was made by BBC and the French Canal+, and it was created and written by Deborah Davis, the Oscar-nominated screenwriter of The Favourite. Its origins date back to 2018 when, after the final season of Versailles aired, Canal+ commissioned Deborah Davis to write a series centered on Marie Antoinette. Later, it was reported that the series was being created by an all-female writing team and would offer a feminist take on Marie Antoinette's life. Despite being filmed in English, the cast included not only British actors but also actors from many other European countries: France, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Spain, and so on. Most notably, German actress Emilia Schüle was cast in the titular role, and I think it may be the first time that in an English language production, Marie Antoinette is played by an actress whose native language is in fact German. I am not sure how big exactly the budget of the series was, but I think it must have been quite big since they could afford to film in the original locations in Versailles, in Fontainebleau, and in other magnificent places. So, based on these, I had several pre-assumptions before watching the series, and some of them proved to be right, and some of them proved to be wrong. First of all, I was quite worried about what this feminist take on Marie Antoinette would mean. I feared it would be a terribly inaccurate, anachronistic, modern girl power take, with Marie being extremely smart and talented, and she would basically rule France instead of the king or something like that. I also didn't know what to expect based on the creator's previous works, whether it would be more like Versailles or a black comedy like The Favourite. I expected a lot from the international cast, although I worried a bit about how they will manage to film in English. Will they manage it, or will they be dubbed? Even though Marie Antoinette as a subject for historical drama might sound a bit overused, as there have been several movies about her, she has never actually got a TV series that features her as the main character, so I found the original concept quite a good idea. Now, the series starts in 1770 when Marie Antoinette leaves for France at age 14, and episode 8 ends in 1781. I think this time frame is ideal for an 8-episode long season. The story is a very personal take on Marie Antoinette. We see the whole story through her personal lens and then somewhat through Louis's too. I have to admit that this personal lens drew me in immediately. While watching episode 1, I felt like I was the 14-year-old Marie Antoinette and I could understand and experience everything she was going through. In behind-the-scenes videos, the creators even explained how they also used the scenery and certain shots and camera work to help create this personal viewpoint. The story dived deep into her personal life and problems, exploring her relationships with her family, with members of the French royal family, with her friends, her enemies, and most importantly, with her husband. I liked very much how the series explored in great detail what her relationship with Louis could be like and how it developed through the episodes. I never thought it possible, and it was a great surprise to me, but I actually ended up rooting for them, even shipping them, even though I have always been a big Fersen and Marie Antoinette shipper. I think the series managed to do this, to make this relationship and dynamic very interesting, without being terribly inaccurate historically, without going straight against basic historical facts. Now, since the series mostly deals with her personal story, we don't get to learn much about the history of this decade, about what is actually going on in France and in the world, other than some court politics and, of course, the relationship between France and Austria, which has a direct impact on Marie Antoinette's life too. We only see a bit of the matter of the American Revolution, which France supports, and not much else. We don't see the monarch's current challenges in domestic or foreign politics, the historical events of the era, or what was going on in France in general. So, if you watch historical shows to see historical happenings, politics, or battles, you probably won't like this TV series. I was okay with this though, because I think this very personal concept helps the audience to see Marie Antoinette's life in a different light. I have read in a few reviews that the story was too slow or boring. Well, to me it wasn't, because I was drawn in from the first. Indeed, there is not much action, and the whole story might have been enough for 6 episodes instead of 8, but I think these 8 episodes weren't too many either. I think it is a matter of whether it catches your attention with the characters, with the personal stories and emotions, or it doesn't. I have already mentioned that the series featured an international cast, a concept which I think can go either very well or very wrong. I think it was rather positive this time. I loved Emilia Schüle in the lead role. I think she was excellent. Louis Cunningham as Louis XVI was also very good. It was a very nice surprise to me how sympathetic he managed to make Louis. Well done to him, because I think this was his breakthrough role, because he barely has anything credited with his name, so this was quite a big role for him, and he managed very well, in my opinion. I also found the dynamic between the main duo awesome. Both actors did very well. I think casting them together was a very good decision. Even though their ages don't quite fit how old Louis and Marie should be at this time, that didn't strike me as a problem either. This is a bit funny because recently, about a similar case in Becoming Elizabeth, I complained how the actress's incorrect age negatively affected the story. But for some reason, I didn't have the same problem with Marie Antoinette. Maybe because Emilia Schüle still has these young girlish looks. I don't know. I think most of the rest of the cast is also good. I particularly liked James Purefoy as Louis XV. I think that casting decision was great. I have seen Gaia Weiss in some other productions, and I was never too blown away by her performance. But here, as Madame du Barry, she was excellent. I think she might be my favorite Madame du Barry so far. Now that the new Du Barry film with Johnny Depp is coming, I wonder how that will be able to match up with Gaia's Du Barry, because she certainly set the bar quite high. I think the acting by the others was also good, and the rest of the characters in the French court were also okay. Maybe the character of Chevalier de Saint-Georges could have been elaborated better. He was there a lot, but he didn't really get a character or a place in the story. By the way, a movie is just coming out about him. So many productions about 18th century France these days. When it comes to historical accuracy, the series is certainly not a documentary, and it has its fair share of inaccuracies, but I think that relatively it stays within the limits. Of course, these limits are different for everyone, and as I also mentioned in my CC video, those who are well versed in a certain historical era or topic always tend to be more disturbed by the historical inaccuracies when watching a TV show about that topic. So, since I had limited knowledge about the last decades of the French Bourbons before the Revolution, and I didn't have any emotional attachment to any of these historical figures, I wasn't very disturbed by the historical inaccuracies in the show, with a few notable exceptions. Actually, I found that several things that made me think, this is quite hard to believe, it must be fiction invented by the writers, were actually historically accurate, or at least somewhat based on certain facts or contemporary rumors. So, I was quite positively surprised by this too. There are some inaccuracies in the series which are based on reality but are hugely exaggerated. For example, Provence's behavior towards his brother. I think this is also better than complete inaccuracies which are invented entirely by the writers out of thin air. So, all in all, I think the series is more accurate historically than your usual historical TV series these days, but certainly not the most accurate I have ever seen. I must also say a few words about the costumes, which I liked very much. I think that after the 2006 Marie Antoinette movie, which won an Oscar for its costumes, it is a very, very challenging task to design costumes for a Marie Antoinette production, because the dresses of that movie are just so iconic now. But I think the costumes of this series are also very beautiful. There are a few exceptions, but all in all, I found the whole series visually quite stunning. The costumes, the sets, and the production design together create such a gorgeous look for the series. To be honest, I didn't really find the series very feminist, even though they advertised it as a new feminist take on Marie Antoinette. I don't think it was overly modern, or it included anachronistic forced feminism. I mean, yeah, its protagonist is a female historical figure, and it looks at the historical era through a woman's eyes, but there was no overdone girl power in the series. Marie Antoinette doesn't fight with a sword in her hand or something like that. It is among the better examples of feminist or feminine historical series. Since the series has been quite successful with both the audience and the critics, it has already been announced that the series is going to have a second season, and based on the creators' comments, it might show their story up until the French Revolution. I am very glad that this show will get a continuation, and I am looking forward to season 2. Maybe if season 2 turns out to be something very great, this show might get into the list of my 15 favorite historical TV shows. We will see.